Hi, everyone. I'm Deb Peterson, and you're here with Balance Your Life podcast.
And I'm Dee Valente, and we are here today with a very special guest and a very dear friend.
Us. Concetta Bertoldi, New York Times bestselling author and renowned psychic medium, world-renowned, I should say. And Concetta's always a pleasure. We love being with you.
Girl.
Yeah, a little different than the TV show.
Yeah, this is great.
So we're just going to chat. We know you have a million stories.
You got it.
Yeah.
We've heard some incredible stories from you over the years, and we always just have a lot of fun. So I think that our audience is in for a tremendous treat.
Right. So we're here. I guess we'll share a bunch of stories today. And do you want to start out with, the usual, how you started, how you got into this?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've always had this ability all of my life, and I never thought I would be public with this. However, I've always been an entertainer, so it never occurred to me that I'd be using this with the entertaining ability that I have. But it really does work out well because you need a great sense of humor when you're dealing with this subject matter. And I try to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you're talking to people who've lost people, and you're dealing with the dead. So it is so important to try to keep people uplifted while you're doing that. So I do throw in my events, in my shows, my sense of humor.
Yes.
But I do it when it's very much not a insult. It's lovely, and it tries to just make them smile.
Yeah, it's totally appropriate. I mean, we've seen you many times. You work the crowd wonderfully.
Yeah, you soften it for everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
And it's delivered perfectly that people just are in a place of appreciation with the messages you give, which could be a little scary, right?
Yeah.
To someone who is not familiar with hearing these things, but they want to.
Right. It's so healing.
Was it always like that for you when you were young and your abilities came through? Did you feel comfort from the get-go?
Yes, because I never knew anything else.
Okay.
If you're born blind and somebody says to you, how does it feel to be blind? You miss not seeing. Somebody who's been born that way would say, no, I don't know anything else. This is all I know.
Right.
And that was, for me, something I've always been able to do was hear them. So I never knew any difference. I just knew that as I got older, other people were not experiencing things the way I was. So I had to then learn to be careful who I trusted by telling people what was happening. At my age, at this point in my life, people are more accepting of this.
Oh, yeah.
But when I was young, this was something somebody would really make fun of. Or
they're afraid of it. They're
There
skeptical.
was no information out there years ago.
Was your family supportive?
Oh, God,
I was going to say, your dad was very supportive, right? I remember
both of them, really.
Okay.
My mom jumped on board because my father was so accepting of it. His father had the same ability. So he knew about it. He didn't have the ability, my dad, but he knew because his father had this ability.
Right.
So he convinced my mother, and the way my mother was raised, it wasn't hard for her to get on board because she said anything had to be better than the way she was taught.
Okay, yeah.
So I was very fortunate at home, actually in so many ways, because they were lovely people. They were such kind people.
You picked the right people to come into and the right family to come into.
That is so true. That is so true because I think that we all choose who we're born to. I think we all come here with purpose and reason, destiny and karma, and I do believe that we choose who we're born to. And I think you're right. I did choose just the right people to be born to, because they were so. How do I say this? They wouldn't tolerate any racism. They wouldn't tolerate any differences. My one brother was gay who passed away, and he brought many times partners home, and my mother and father embraced every single one of them. And my younger brother has dated every color in the universe, and every single one of them was welcome in our home and treated incredibly fairly, and
right. And at a time where that wasn't really
right.
the norm.
I know other families they would say stick to your own kind, don't bring anybody home like this or like that. Not my mother and father. They were like, if you love them,
they were ahead of their time.
They were ahead of their times, and they didn't even raise us a religion. I mean, we celebrated Christmas, but My parents were both different ethnic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. And so my mother and father said, you kids, when you get old enough and decide what you want to follow or whatever it is you want to believe, we're going to be on board with that.
That's great.
And we're going to celebrate right along with, if there's 6 religions, and they only had 3 kids. But, they said, we'll celebrate them all.
That's great.
That's great.
Yeah. I was lucky.
So then, when did you really come out public? How did tell us a little bit about?
Oh God!
Well, I know the
it's a long story.
Yeah,
there's so much
it's a good
to that.
story, though.
That's why I write these books. But
Yes.
my oldest brother, who was 38 when he died of AIDS, and I was 37, and the first thing he did when he got to the other side was let me know he was all right, and that what as much as he could make me understand what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't long after him being there, he said to me, we need your help. Please deliver these messages.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it because I worked in the mainstream. I never told a lot of people about this ability.
Right.
And so I was coming out of the closet in a different way that he came out of the closet.
Right.
But it took a couple of years, but eventually I decided, he said, we'll help you from this side
Right.
if you help us on that side. And it was nothing short of a miracle.
When you were younger, and I know you had, because we've talked about this, you had tremendous intuitive and psychic abilities.
Right.
Did you realize that you had the ability to connect with those that passed at that point when you were younger?
I heard dead people all my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just the way it is.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
And I started to realize that at a very young age,
Yeah.
10, 11. And then I remember, I have a close friend at 10 years old, and we've been friends ever since. And she's still one of my best friends.
That's great.
And she was one that I knew I could trust, so I confided in her. She was raised completely different, had no idea and no experience with, to this day, still really has no ability at all. But I love her to pieces.
It's all right.
But she trusts me and believes me, and she's seen enough things to know this is real.
Yeah.
But I remember us as kids, the way her reactions were when I would say to her, "Did you ever see anybody at the foot of your bed, talking to you?" And when her grandmother died, I remember saying to her, "Do you ever talk to her and see her?" And I remember the responses. But over the years, of course, I confided in her, and it wasn't a mistake because I trusted her, and she never betrayed me. To this day,
great.
has never betrayed me. So that was a really wonderful thing to have a really close confidant. And then I had my father, who I could tell anything to.
Right.
And when I did, he would slowly tell me little bits and pieces. And one of them was, Grandpa had the same. My grandfather died when I was 5,
Okay.
so I never knew him when he was on Earth. But I remember my father telling me he had the same thing. And then he told me about people coming to see him from far places for help.
Okay.
And that there were times my father witnessed things that he said he saw. That my grandfather was one time, I'm just going to say it, he did exorcisms.
Okay.
So my father said he witnessed things as a young kid, watching where the adults were in some part of the house where my grandfather did these exorcisms. And he said he saw things that he did not understand, and it scared him, but my grandmother made him comfortable, and they were good people.
Right.
That they just needed Grandpa's help, and this person,
It's okay.
had
Yeah.
evil, this person had evil around them and needed to get rid of the evil, and Grandpa helped him.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is great.
Basic and true. Right. Yeah.
So I was born into it, you might say.
Right. I know you have a good story about your brother with the house that you bought.
Oh,
you want to
yeah.
share that with them? Because
I hope you'll forgive me. I have so many good
You
stories.
do. Well, I
really
love
do.
that one though. It's so,
And this is one of my favorites because we were we've talked about this before.
Right.
But it was when my husband and I bought our house where we live now.
Okay.
And we were looking, and at that time, which is about 27, 28 years ago now, we weren't in a really good place, sadly, in our marriage, because there was so much. When we got married, I married a man who had 2 children from a previous marriage. I married a man whose mother, from the day I met her, didn't like me, and everybody in the family kind of got the permission slip not to like me either.
Yeah.
So I was up against a really, really tough time, you know. Stepchildren, in-laws that don't like you, I don't. So,
Did they know of your abilities?
Oh,
Was
God,
that part
no.
of it?
I didn't even tell my husband.
Oh,
I didn't even tell him because there was such animosity in the atmosphere and the energy that the last thing I wanted to do was say at Thanksgiving dinner, hey, can you pass me those sweet potatoes? By the way, did I mention here dead people? It wasn't going to go over.
You'll have them standing behind you.
And my husband didn't need much more because he was already being influenced at that time, so it was really tough. But what happened is I had a uncle who died, and we were only married a couple of years at this time, and my family knew about me, so we were at the wake, and my husband was watching my cousins coming up, and they would say to me, do you hear him? My uncle. They would say, do you hear Uncle Tony? And I would say, no. And all my husband heard or saw was, no. So he started to get in his head, maybe I had a boyfriend.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that I was somebody else.
You had many. No.
Yeah, it was really not good. So I remember finally we were in marriage counseling at one point, and he said, why don't you talk about my husband now? Why don't you talk about what you were talking about your cousins? Yeah, go ahead, tell the therapist.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, and I had told the therapist privately that I heard dead people.
Okay.
As luck would have it, our therapist was an ex-nun.
Oh,
I mean, I had everything going on wrong at that time in my life.
Great.
And I remember when I was being treated by her alone, and she said to me, you know, something, and finally I said to her, well, I'm afraid to tell him. And she said, well, what are you afraid to tell him? And then I said, well, I hear dead people. And I mean, this was a woman who was a nun who left the convent, figured it wasn't for her, but all her training told her, this is
Get holy water.
This is no good, right? And then, as it were, when I was with this therapist, she said, do you hear anything around me?
No, I was going to say she probably said.
That's like the $1 million question. I get it all the time. Yes, I do. And then I told her some stuff, and that really clarified what was going on. So when we were in therapy, and my husband said, "Why don't you tell her about what's going on?" And I said, "What do you mean, what's going on?" And he said, "Why don't you tell her whatever you were telling your cousins that you couldn't tell me?" And then she said, "I think it's safe to say Concetta is not a liar. Why don't you tell him what it was?" And that's how my husband found out.
Oh wow! Okay,
And
we never knew that.
Yeah, because I said to him, "Okay, here it is. I figured at this point I got nothing to lose.
Right, might as well.
I hear dead people." And I remember him going, "Oh, great. This is great. Now I got to deal with this." You know, he had a lot being thrown at him from the family. So the last thing he needed to hear now was, okay, so she hears dead people. Even when I hear it myself, I see how the humor is in it now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was really, you know, it was
serious. That's
and it
right.
was tough. And I was so young then. Anyway, so, you know, and I was so afraid, you know, that I was going to lose my marriage. And I love this guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, and anyway, he's a really wonderful guy. So I don't want the audience to think at home.
No,
he's
we know him
really
personally.
smart.
He's great.
Actually, we know have his best marriage.
Yeah,
And
he's
he's
so
darling and-
supportive.
he's
Yeah,
just
comes
lovely.
to everything you do, stands in the back,
Yeah.
makes a few comments to us. If he,
We call him Johnny Fontaine, but, you know, because he stands in the background.
Right.
But that's like years of, you know,
Right.
in the beginning, he knew his family more than he knew me.
Of
Right.
course,
You got to know that,
Right,
right? I mean,
of
I think
course.
we knew each other 9 months. We got engaged.
Oh.
6 months later, we were married. So he knew me like this. He
Yeah,
knew them like that.
of course.
And they had already made up their mind that they weren't going to accept me. So he was trying to please way too many people with a woman that he loved, but he wasn't sure if they were right and I was wrong. So it just took time and patience and mud onto me. I don't know where I found that. But today, it's a beautiful
meant
thing.
to be. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So where was I?
So you're going to tell a story about Harold. with
Oh,
the house.
Harold.
Yes.
So when Harold died, by then my husband knew about my
Yes.
ability, but I wasn't public yet when my brother passed away. And it was so difficult. He died of AIDS. He was, I just got to say, he was such a beautiful boy. You know, I mean, in all fairness, I wish you girls could have gotten to meet him. He was so sweet and so handsome. But, so he was 38 years old. He was 6'1". He was absolutely gorgeous. He had an amazing personality. He made me look boring. And, oh, he did. He did, and he lived in New York City, and he was gay. So unfortunately, I'll never forget when I was at work one day when I worked in the mainstream, and I was reading People magazine, and I saw an article about this big, some virus, attacks the gay community in New York. And the minute I read it, I went because I heard, and I knew right away.
Yeah.
And it was something they didn't talk about at that time. Didn't even have the word AIDS attached to it. But I remember calling him up and saying, "Honey, I'm really worried about you. You're in the gay community. You're gay. And what's this virus?" "Oh, don't worry about it, babe. I take care of myself. I take vitamins." Blah, blah, blah. But who knew, right?
No one.
So it was only within a couple of years, and he was gone. But anyway, he was only 38 years old. So when he passed away, as I said, I was working the mainstream, and when he passed, he came right away to me, and I said, "Of course, I'm so happy. This hearing dead people thing is really going to finally serve me, because this is somebody I really love."
Sure.
And it was the first person I had ever lost that I really loved. And I said to him, "How are you? What do you do there? What's going on?" I had a million questions.
Of course,
right? And he said a lot, and then he said to me, and within a couple of maybe 2 years, he said to me, "We want your help. Can you please deliver these messages?" And I was reluctant, because I was fearful. But the funny part was I was also fearful because I had a job in the mainstream. I had health insurance. My friends used to laugh because when they used to say, "Concetta, you should do this publicly," my argument was, "Yeah, but at work, I have a stamp machine. I can use the stamp machine anytime I want." And they teased me. They were like, "Oh my God, she's worried about the stamp machine," right? But anyway, so Harold said, "If you help us, if you agree to help us, we will help you."
Beautiful.
Okay. So then I said, "Honey, but then I thought to myself, I'm not a businesswoman. I only graduated high school, and by the skin of my teeth, by the way, because I was severely dyslexic. So in school, they didn't even have programs like they have today.
Oh, sure.
So I just grew up thinking I was not bright.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the teachers in those days treated me that way. But they'd say things like, "You're not even trying, or try it again, And it was horrible. So the only thing I excelled in was when it came to using my personality. That was where I could, shine. So as a result, I said to him, "What do you want me to do? Tell people what, you're there and what I hear?" He said, "Yes." I don't even know how to do that. I don't know. What do I do? Just go out in the parking lot and say, "Hey, here I am. I dead people. You want me to call one of them for you?" So he said, "Just agree." And I said, it took me a while, but I said, at that time, I was working for this guy who was a real Stugatz. Oh, I don't know if I can say that.
That's fine.
Okay. He was a real Mameluke. Okay, so I don't even know if I can say that.
You can say Mameluke.
But anyway, so as luck would have it, this guy, long story short, I left the company.
Okay.
And that's when I said, "All right, I got nothing to lose. Let me try this, right? So I got tarot cards, and I started putting tarot cards and tell people I was doing readings with tarot cards. I don't know the first thing about tarot cards. So a person would sit in front of me, and I would they'd be looking at the cards and what they could get from what they see, and I'd be looking above their head listening for dead folks. And
that's great. I don't think you've ever told us that.
Yeah, and they were distracted by the cards.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So it was really, really good. And then finally, it took off, of course. I mean, it was amazing. Within 1 year, I was booked for the next 2.5 years.
Wow. Now, right now, I mean, for someone to have a reading with you, you are booked many years out, right?
Is it 5 or 7?
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Actually, I'm not making new appointments because we're trying to catch up.
Oh gosh,
really, we have so many years ahead that my assistant is trying to work with that. But I love what I do.
Right, and you do the public shows.
So I'm eternally grateful.
Yes. People can
for their confidence in me and giving me a shot and believe me and knowing that I don't make this stuff up.
Yes.
But anyway, so where was I? Harold. Yeah. So I did the tarot cards, and slowly but surely I was booked 2.5 years in advance, and realizing I got to get rid of these tarot cards. People started saying to me, "Well, there's the Joker. What does that mean?" And I'm like, wait a minute. Finally, I just said, I don't know. What about
just out for show?
I don't know. This is the 6 of Cups. Maybe we want coffee. I had no idea. So finally I said, listen, all right, I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah.
I'm ready to be honest. These I don't do. I don't let people. Now, keep in mind, if it was like 1798, they would already have a fire going down in the center of town if I lived in Salem.
Right.
So I was taking a chance in my mind. So anyway, long story short, I got rid of the tarot cards. I held up my hands. I said, I give. I hear dead people. If you want me to listen for you, I will.
Yeah. Great.
And that's how it happened. And he's been one of my best dispatchers ever since.
Right.
Now my mother and father have since joined him. I call them affectionately my God Squad. And so I'm very grateful for this ability.
Yeah.
It's
and it's taken you all over the world.
It has.
Yeah, and you've touched millions and
amazing.
millions of
You've
people.
changed millions of lives.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
So
I'm very grateful to hear you girls say that, and I appreciate it so much. But how do I say this?
I'll say it. You're so humble.
I appreciate it.
I know, and you know what? You need to be in this business.
I don't want to be anything else.
That's right.
And I allow and want people to think highly of me and say nice things about me, but you're never going to hear me talk like that about myself.
Wow.
Matter of fact, it's so funny because in my inner circle, my husband, my stepchildren, they'll say when I do an event, go send Sonny in there. Because this is Concetta. And they know the real girl. And I never want anybody to find out. So I always tell people right up front, listen, I got a filthy sense of humor. And I swear like a truck driver. Okay, but God does not get mad at me for that. Because God loves me. But I can honestly say that I'm not perfect and I know my faults. But when I do this work, it's almost like there's a little switch. Because I have panic attacks, and when I go to do an event, I get terrible stage fright. I know it's amazing, and it's like, and I never
know watching you.
No. Even myself, I'm amazed at it too because I know what the week before an event is for me. I'm at home
and
nervous.
And you also have told us that before the event, they're all visiting you.
Oh,
it's
waking you up all week, and
yes, they're there.
I just recently told somebody that about Concetta. I don't know who it was, but
it's not unusual for people to walk into an event and say, is there somebody here named and did this happen and what can somebody explain this to me? Because at home this week this dead guy would not leave me alone and I want that person to get this information. I mean, but so
do you want to tell a story of your house?
Oh, sure.
I guess I love
that story. It's a great story.
Okay, so all right, I digress. It's 27 years ago. John and I are looking for a home, and we lived in West Orange at the time. And we were not in a great place. Of course, I had mentioned that. And he saw a house that he really liked. And he said, and it was I wanted this area where we lived. And he was going to do that for me because it was going to be really hard for him to take him away from the family, which all lived and congregated in one area.
Well, of course they did. So you're like, I'm out of there.
Oh, yeah. And I wanted to move as far.
Yes.
So I knew where I grew up. I felt home there, comfortable there. I said, can we just look there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we did. So he found a house, and he really loved it. And he said, I like this house. But we were with the realtor. And she said, I have one more home to show you before you make your mind up. So we pull into a driveway of a home. And the house is like a cabin. It's only like 2 floors, of course, that's okay, but it's only got like 4 or 5 rooms. And we came from an old colonial in West Orange, and my husband renovated the whole thing, and it had 1, 2, 3, 4 floors.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, he turned the attic into a master suite. He turned the basement into an amazing family room. And then there were 2 rooms in between. So I don't want to overstate it. It wasn't like a mansion. It was just beautifully done by my talented husband. So when we move now, this realtor drives up and we see this little tiny cabin. Right. So I'm not even out of the car yet. I got a seatbelt on. The driver is the realtor. John's in the back seat. And I hear my brother say to me, this is your home. This is where you're going to live. So I am like beside myself. So I'm not even out of the car, but the seatbelt, the doors, she's not even in park. And I'm jumping out of the car and she's looking and she goes, what are you doing? I go to the realtor. I said, you don't understand. I'm going to live here. This is my home. So she goes, oh, really? You haven't even seen it? You're not even outside? I said, no, but And John's in the backseat going, Concetta, don't start. And then the realtor goes, how do you know? I said, my brother Harold just told me I'm going to live here. So I'm jumping out of the car and I'm running around the property, and John is in the backseat trying to get out with the realtor, and the realtor says to him, who's Harold? And he said, oh, it's her brother. And she said, is he a realtor? And he goes, no. And he goes, well, how does she know that he told her? And he went, well, he's dead. Okay. The realtor now looks like she saw a ghost. You know, she's all thinking, who the heck are these people? Meanwhile, I'm running around on the property and I'm checking it all out because I know I'm going to live here. And my husband, of course, liked the house down the street.
Right.
So he comes up, and to be, perfectly honest, we weren't in the best of terms in those moments, in those years. So he started right away giving me the list of why we couldn't live here. It's got a flat roof, Concetta. It's all electric heat. No, you know what it's going to, and forget about it. You know how much money it's going to cost to renovate that? Yeah. So I just said, okay, fine, whatever you say, because I already were told.
When Harold told you, like, that's it, right?
Baby.
There's no arguing.
Already told me there's no arguing. He said it, so I'm just going to shut up and let him figure it out.
Right.
So now we drive back, and the realtor's like, she's not even saying anything.
Get her out of this car.
So he puts a bid on the house down the street.
Okay.
And he tells me, I put a bid on the house down the street. So of course I'm disappointed because I'm thinking, oh God, I hope you're right, baby. But I look at my husband, I go, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So now the bid goes through and they accept our offer. But on the second day of attorney review, they change their mind. So when I come home from work, he says to me, they passed on the deal. They jumped out of the deal, attorney review.
Right.
So I went, okay, now Harold says to me, you got 4 days. I can only hold this house for 4 more days.
Okay.
If you don't, and he said, you can get the house for, this is 27 years ago now, folks. Mm-hmm. It's not, 2024 or 25. He said, you can get the house for $180,000. So I said to my husband, well, listen, not to bring it up because I know you have all these reasons why we shouldn't get it. I said, but Harold said, okay, now he's talking about a brother-in-law that's dead and he has no idea. So I said, he said, we can only have it in 4 days. The deal's going to be off the table, but we can only get it if we do it in 4 days. You'll get the house for $180,000. Oh, really, Concetta? Okay, fine. Oh. So I got a million of these stories. But anyway, the house started out on the market at $249,900. Okay. These people had it on the market for, I don't remember how long. By the time we looked at it, it was on the market for $199,000. Or 195 something.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. And I just said, and my husband said, oh, you remember it's got a flat, all the arguments that come up. Meanwhile, I'm just like, okay, fine. I leave, within work the next day, whatever. I come home, he says to me, okay, you got your way, we bought the house.
Oh.
So I go, we did? Because I was shocked. And he said, yes, I called today, I put a bid in. Now, I said, well, what did we get it for? Well, that's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong. Why? What'd you pay? What are we paying? He said $195, whatever. And I thought to myself, that's unusual because he said
he's right.
Yeah,
And they're never wrong.
All right, I'll go with it.
All right.
So, long story short, we go for the closing, and we're sitting at the table, and we go for the last, you go for the house, you look at it the last time.
The walk-through,
right.
Yes.
So we're walking through, in the bedroom, there is a flood coming down in the master bedroom. They got buckets and water.
Flat roof will
so my husband's sitting there looking at me like, look, what?
Right, what did we do?
I don't know. And then on the property, these people had like piles of metal and all stuff that's not biodegradable. So you have to have special people pick this stuff.
It has to go
haul it away.
It has to be
and they were
taken out.
supposed to get rid of that.
Sure.
So at the attorney review, is that what attorney review? When we're on the last day, not the attorney review, closing. Sorry. So he says, my husband says, listen, that roof, I'm not responsible for that. They said it was brand new. So they said, yes, we have a guarantee. Here's the guy's name. And, you have a warranty. You can get the roof fixed. So my husband, being in business, said, no. You hired him. You get the roof fixed. I'm not going to call him up with your warranty.
Yeah.
And he said, and they go, okay, well, give us at least a month. So my husband said, no, I'm not a jerk. I'll give you 3 months. 3 months, get the roof fixed. And they held money in escrow for that.
Sure.
Then he said, they were supposed to remove all this stuff. Yeah. This is going to cost so much money to get this stuff removed. So they added that to the little escrow account, right? So they had 3 months to fix the roof that they had a warranty for, and 3 months to get rid of all this debris that was piled up outside. And whatever, long story short, 3 months later, they did nothing, and they called up the attorneys, and they said, you know what, keep the house at $180,000. We don't want it. And we got the house right.
I love it. Of course you did.
And then I went on to find out, God bless these people, they had inherited a home from one of their parents. A beautiful home, I heard, in Parsippany. So nobody got really hurt, but we got the house for under.
There you go. Never again.
And you don't doubt
I have a million stories.
Yeah.
That's why my husband, to this day, all these years later, you know, he doesn't play it down. He acts like, oh yeah, but that's no big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. You know, it's pretty funny.
And you were telling us before that you had a good story from one of your past events this weekend.
Well, you know, I don't remember when I do these events. I don't remember most of the stuff that happens.
Sure.
I love that other people remember, and they say to me, "Oh, Concetta, you said this, you said that, or whatever."
And is that's because you're channeling it in? Is that okay?
When I go
just
in
to tell people.
Yeah, well, you know what, Deb? I think probably in past episodes of Balance Your Life, I've mentioned this.
Yes.
I go on to an automatic pilot state of mind.
Yes.
You know, we're here in our conscious minds, and I'm very conscious of everything, as you both are, and everything around us, and what we're saying and doing. But when I listen to them, I kind of like a little switch that goes to subconscious, and I am constantly fluctuating between my conscious mind and my subconscious. And by the way, you are too. The difference is I know it when it's happening.
Right, we do.
And you do know everybody does do this, and everybody has this ability, but they call it things like a gut feeling.
Yeah,
You know, with Concetta, it comes through you because you're so much in trust. There's no doubt, and so it comes through. Like you're delivering it, and there's no opinion on it, and there's no putting your own stuff and questioning. You just trust and you give it. I guess because Harold was right about the price of the house, right? but so yeah,
and so
that's
many
why
other things.
You know what? You know, to be honest with you, baby, I look at that, everything you just said, and have analyzed that myself personally. And what I can respond now is that I've been doing this now for a long time, and I've done it my whole life. So what has happened to me, and I openly realize that it's like anything else you exercise. You start to really understand you're getting good at it, or you're talented, or you're doing something that when you started out, you were only this able in your ability to. It's like when you learn to, somebody starts out saying, I'm going to be a runner. They start running a mile, you know, and they're happy with that. Right? And then before you know it, they put more effort and more days into it, more time into it, more faith into it, more confidence in it, right? And then they start learning little tricks. Maybe if I lean this way, I don't know anything about running, by the way, get these sneakers, get this, or maybe if I breathe this way, they start adding to all of their list of things that's going to make them better at the thing they decided to do. Okay, so by the time they've spent a couple of years doing that, they're a major athlete. Now they're running, you know, marathons, and at the end they're barely breathing. Meanwhile, I'd be on the ground, they'd have to scrape me off the floor. But I didn't put any effort in. So with all the years and all the time and all this experience now, I've grown as a person who has this ability in that respect. You know, but as I said, everybody has this ability, and you might call it something just told me. I don't know, it was something, and then I would correct you and say, no, someone told you, honey. Someone told you, and it's in your subconscious. And then once you identify it and you start to recognize, oh wow, that did happen, you're right, and then the next time it happened, the next time, and before you know it, you start realizing, holy cow, I've got that same dead people in my head as Concetta has, you know what I mean?
That's great.
You know, I was just encouraged as a child. I was encouraged by my dad. He would say to me, I gotta say, he would encourage me, and I would always feel very safe in his embrace, that he would say, you're going to be all right, it's going to be okay, and you just need to protect yourself, and this is how you do it.
He gave you such an amazing foundation.
Yeah, that's great.
Honey.
I mean, what you just gave to everyone who's listening is a foundation. Is that you said you just, you know, you just did that. You just told everyone it's okay and listen.
Yeah.
But
and you're right, darling. And you know, that's my one regret. is because I was just talking to my younger brother yesterday, and I said to him, we were talking about our father, and he said, I wish there were so many more things I would have loved to have asked him.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I never, as you're a kid growing up, that's why I love to tell people, I'm doing a class next month, and this is one of the things I'm going to tell people among things I've learned with this.
Yeah.
When you are growing up, if you are lucky enough to still have your parents alive, do things that you will later on in life be happy you did. Because at this stage of my life, there's things I wish I had asked him. He used to say to me when I was a kid, my father, he used to say to me all the time, honey, you're not like other people. Your mind's not like other people. You got to be very careful with your mind because it's not like other people. And I, as a child growing up, heard this all the time and would go, okay, Dad. Yeah,
Right.
But I never thought to say, why are you saying that?
What does that
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
I've had to figure it out for myself at this stage of my life, what I think he meant. But I should have said, what do you mean? But my father was such a beautiful man. And I am not lying when I say this to you. If he didn't say it to me every day of my life, he at least said it to me 3 times a week.
Sure.
But he said to me all the time, you're beautiful.
No.
You're beautiful. Or things to me like, how come you're so beautiful?
Aw.
With this beautiful face, he would say to me. As a result, I'm 70 years old. And I feel beautiful because he drew a print and he installed it in my computer, and he made me really see it through his eyes. And it's not easy when you're this age to see yourself as beautiful because the world at large puts so much pressure on all of us, but especially women. We've been put upon since the beginning of time. And if you don't feel beautiful, as you get older, you're going to feel not so great. And it's because everything's gone south for the winter, you don't have I don't have the same arms I once had. I'm happy they work, but I mean, when you see them naked, you say, oh yeah, she's 70. But here's the bottom line. I'm still rocking it.
That's right. And you're still working.
If you saw
sold
me in
out.
the bathing suit I wore in Spain, you would say to yourself, who does that chick think she is? And then I would turn around and say, Concetta Bertoldi. Because my father told me I was beautiful.
That's right. Good for you.
But I'm not a brat about it,
No,
I mean, I don't think I'm better than anybody else. I just feel good.
That's good.
And that's
we all
what I
should
tell
feel
people,
good.
and
Honestly.
I love to tell women, I love to tell men, so that they can tell their daughters
Yes,
the difference
absolutely.
they can make in their lives. They don't even realize the power that we all have with our words.
I love that.
And it's so
I love
simple,
that.
but-
It's so true.
It is
It's
so
lovely.
true.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you going to tell us the story of what happened at the event?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
All right. Digress. So last week I had a show and I did my thing and I was very pleased, but I really don't remember the things I say or do.
Right.
I count
that's
on
what
my
we got.
audience.
Yeah.
They'll come up to me or they'll maybe send me an email, but I don't remember. Or my favorite is I have 2 assistants and they go to them and say, oh, Concetta said this or whatever. Make sure you tell her this, that, whatever.
Okay. That's
All right,
nice.
so here I am. I'm in the show, and it's a packed house. And about the second row in, I see this couple, and they look older. You can tell they're like at least in their late 60s, maybe a little more, but they're adorable.
Okay.
But they're as white as snow. Okay, and when I talk white, they came from the Nordic. I mean, there wasn't an ounce of color anywhere on their body. Right? So I said to them. And I saw them. They didn't raise their hand. They looked dissatisfied.
Oh.
They didn't ask for me to do a reading. They kind of sat there like this. And I was thinking, every time I would walk around and scan them, I'd say, I wonder why they're even here. They don't look like they're having a good time.
Right.
And they're not raising their hand. And I can't figure out what this is. So me, in my sense of humor, went up to her and I said, I got to tell you, you look like a real skeptic, and I love a challenge. Who are you looking for? So she turns and looks at me and says, my son. Well, of course I felt terrible. I said, oh, honey, I'm so sorry, baby.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to insult you. If I did, forgive me. Do you want me to listen for you? She said, yes. I said, okay. So now I start doing my thing, and all of a sudden the son comes forward and he tells me he was very young. He was a mission entity, which means a child that comes in that dies very young, they're a mission entity. They came a highly evolved soul that died very young. So I said he was very young when he died. And she went like this, and her husband was just like looking at me, not doing anything. And then I said, I know he was born, and there's a million ways to leave this side. I think I've heard a million, there's probably a million more. But I said, he had a heart condition. She went, yes. And I said, he had surgery. And she went, yes. And then I told her a bunch of other things that I don't even remember, but she kept doing yes, yes. So finally I said to her, I'm curious to know one thing. I almost didn't say it because I couldn't imagine, because I knew this boy when he died. I'm assuming he was under the age of 5. I never did ask him, but I know he was very little.
Right.
And I was wondering why I saw this, and I said to her, I hope you'll forgive me, but I would love to know if you can answer this question for me. Yes. I said, he is with an African-American boy. Do you know why I would see this African-American boy? And that was why I said they were so white you couldn't think of them.
Yeah, okay.
And I thought to myself, I don't know, maybe, who knows what this was, but I was curious to know how it fit into this.
Because you saw it.
Yeah, and I was trying to find out how this fit into this puzzle, you know? She then goes, her face changed, she backed up, and the husband looked at her as if to say, like this, and then she looks at him, and then she looks at me, and she says, you're not going to believe this. And I'm looking. No, I'm the one who's going to believe this. So she said, on the day of his surgery, when he was in the surgery, she was trying to tell me how tired they were. They had been going through so much with this little boy, and they wanted him to live. Yeah. And he had a bad heart. They couldn't promise anything, but he went in for surgery. She was totally exhausted, and she said, Concetta, I kind of had a vision. She goes, I had a vision, which I think she was saying like kind of like falling asleep because she was exhausted. They were doing surgery, and she kind of she goes, I had a vision, not kind of, I had a vision. Yeah. And I said, yes. Now, meanwhile, the audience is just looking at her silent and waiting to see what she's going to say. And she said, but the amazing thing was I couldn't understand it. And I said, why? She goes, well, I saw an angel. And I said, oh, that's beautiful. She said, yeah, but we couldn't understand it. He was African-American.
Wow.
Wild. So the angel.
And that's what I did. I went, it was like thunder chills.
Yeah.
I got thunder. I went, wow, that was wild. You know, because now the boy from the other side is telling her mom, I'm with the African-American boy.
Oh.
Wow, you can't make that up.
You can't make that up.
There is no way.
150 people in the audience that heard it.
That's right. Right.
But I was just so floored, and I was so happy because she was. And now the husband perked up. But the best part, of course, besides the fact that I love letting them know God is real, we're all the same on the other side of the veil. It doesn't matter what color we are. We're all the same. But when I went to my room when I leave for an intermission, they went up to my assistant and they said, you must tell Concetta. First of all, they drove in from Virginia. They drove all the way from Virginia. Not that that's unusual, but they said, we stayed at the hotel, but my husband didn't want to come. She said, we've been to mediums, and he said to me, why are we driving all the way there? Yeah. She's not even going to talk to us, and this is what we've done, and honey, and she said to Eleanor,
all these years,
I'm going to sleep, and my husband's going to sleep tonight for the best sleep we've had in a long time.
That's great.
And that was the best for me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I knew the look on his face. Now it made sense why he had this look on his face, why they weren't even raising their hand.
Yeah.
They were just not even, they went there, but they must have gone through other situations where they didn't get anything that made them feel comfort, and or they were just not, they were here just hoping for one more try. And I just felt, thank you, Lord.
Yes, I love it,
Lord.
I have to tell you, and I'm going to tell it really quickly, but when my mom passed, I was distraught. I was young, and I was distraught for 5 years. And then I met a medium, and she was giving me signs, but I was just too distraught to really. And as soon as I met him, I went in. He looked at me, raised his glasses, and he looked up. So he was like looking above his glasses. And he said, your mother said, would you leave your people leave her alone? She'd like to paint the sky another shade of blue. And I just, and I was floored, because this was her wicked sense of humor and something she would say. And he went on to give me the messages. And after that, I was fine.
Yeah.
Like 5 years of just driving, and I would find myself alone, and I would just be crying.
Yeah, sure.
I missed her so much. And that just changed the trajectory. It just, so the messages that you give, like, I get what you did for those people when they say they could sleep. I understand.
Yeah.
They really, you changed their life. They could finally breathe again.
And you said they were older too, so that's a long time.
I'm really not good at age and telling ages, but what I want to say to you, baby, is this. I didn't change their life. They did.
Yes.
I'm the messenger.
Okay.
I'm on this side. I'm not perfect. I
But you
always
agreed
know my
to do it.
limitations.
Yeah,
I
but you
always
did
know
agree.
who I am.
Yes.
And I never want people to think that I'm on any kind of pedestal or pat myself on the back, that I need a sling for my arm. No, no. I know what my faults are and my prayer is, please help me to say the right thing that God would be proud of and that they would be happy with.
Right.
You know, because
That's
I don't want to make, I'm going to make mistakes. And I know that, but I don't want to mistake and make anybody sad, hurt, or the wrong thing.
Sure.
You know, that's why I try to keep positive.
I just want to ask you a question. Like, what? I don't know if you've ever asked this before, but are they ever wrong when they tell you something?
Sure, honey.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Oh, all right.
Sure, this isn't...
Because the house
science.
with the money is
that blows me away. But I have stories like that nobody would believe.
Right.
Because,
right.
I mean, even I sit there and say, wow. Because I'm blown away by what they do.
Right,
But what your audience needs to know is that everybody has this ability. You have it too.
We do talk about
I'm not alone. I didn't corner the market on this.
Right.
I just have a higher volume. They say it's because of my defect. I'm hearing impaired. I have no hole in this ear at all. I was born with only one ear.
Okay.
I have no hole, so I have no hearing here. Although my husband says I have a hole here because he said it makes up for the fact that I don't have a hole here. But that's his sense of humor. But honestly, for some reason, I don't know why my ability is higher. I was tested for this. As you know, at the Edgar Casey Institute.
That's an incredible story,
years
too.
ago, when I was very young. I was dating a boy at the time who was in municipal bonds, and it got to the point where he was not much older than me, but I was only, I don't know, 22, he was 30, so that was a big deal. But he used to say to me, what do you think about this bond? What do you think about that? I mean, really, and I innocently would answer, and then he started, because he was into this. I wasn't even into it. He was into it. So he's the one who told me about Edgar Casey.
That's
great.
great.
And for me, I remember thinking, who is Edgar Casey? Because there was nothing in the library in those days on this subject matter. So you couldn't find anywhere. There were no computers. There was no Google. There was nothing on television.
Sure.
You were just thrown out there, hearing dead folks. And if you got lucky enough that somebody didn't make fun of you. So when he told me, this man and his ability, and he, for many years, and of course it got my interest.
Sure.
And I started to read about him, because there were many books written about him. And I didn't even know that, Edgar Casey. They didn't say, here's the guy who wears dead people, here's a medium. They just had Edgar Casey. Wouldn't even know.
Right.
And I wasn't, informed enough to go look for this person in a library. Long story short, he took me to Virginia, which is where Virginia Beach, where the Edgar Casey Institute is.
Yep.
In those days, they had like a test that you would get.
All right.
And they qualified. Yes.
You passed that test.
I passed that test, right. So.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Do you want to talk about your books at all? Just tell people a little bit about.
I write books. I'm very proud of them. They're all written by me. No ghostwriter, if you'll excuse the pun.
That's great.
Because I didn't write them like this.
Yeah.
I recorded them. Every single book I have. I couldn't figure. One time I was with Alec Baldwin. Okay, I gotta say. And he said to me one time, Concetta, you should really write a book. Without even thinking anything of it, And I'm going to tell the whole story about Alex. So here's the funny thing. When I was with him, it was probably, I'm going to say 2005, somewhere around there. I was in LA, excuse me, and let me take a sip.
Yeah,
maybe it's because I'm talking about Alec. I shouldn't be doing that, right?
Ooh.
I'm only joking.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. And he was getting divorced at the time, I think, whatever year that was. I was there doing something with HBO. And he said he was going through the divorce with Kim. And he was fired up. And I said to him, well, Alec, I said, I hope you don't mind me telling you this. because he has a daughter with her named Ireland. And I said to him, you're going to have more kids. Well, he went nuts. He went nuts. It wasn't hard for him to get a little cuckoo. He has a little bit of an Irish hot temper, so God bless him. So he said to me, don't tell me that, Concetta. I'm not having any more kids. There's no way I would. And I went, listen, don't get mad at me. That's what I'm hearing them telling me. And I just innocently told him what I was hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many kids does he have today?
I don't know.
Hello? Yeah. So we both know, or three of us know, he's got a lot more kids today, right?
Yeah, right.
I rest my case, Your Honor. But anyway, so I forget where we were going with this. He told me to get a
the books. Yes, absolutely.
So I said, I am not educated. These are all the things I got against me. I don't have a college education. I do write a diary. I've kept a diary since I'm 10 years old. Okay. But I don't know how to write a book where you go chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Right. I mean, I don't know how to do that. And so it was really amazing how it happened, because even in those days, to get a literary license, a literary agent is near impossible. Today it's impossible.
Yes. Yeah.
People. But in those days, it was very difficult. Unless you were like related to the Kennedys or the Clintons, you weren't going to get a book deal. So little old me from, Morris County, New Jersey, wasn't going to happen. Jersey girl on top of everything? I don't think so. Anyway, but this is what happened. I met this person who introduced me to somebody who worked at the Gersh agency in California. And that person took they took books that were very, very successful, and then they sold them as movie rights.
Oh, okay.
So I had no book to sell, but I met this person, and he was such a nice guy. His name, I'm even going to say his name, Richard. Richard was his name. Nice man. And he said to me, you know what, Concetta, I can't guarantee anything, but I can get my agency in New York to bring some literary agents to meet you, and if one of them likes you, we might be able to get an agent, because you need an agent.
Sure.
All right. Oh, I said, that would be lovely, Rich. I'd love that. So anyway, I went to the first meeting to meet a literary agent, and it was a guy, and I remember he was very sweet and left, and then told him, nope, not interested. And then the second person was a woman, and we met, and she said, I want her. I'll take her.
Awesome. I love it.
And the rest is history. What is fate? You talk about fate.
Yeah. There's just I was going to say, wasn't that orchestrated by the other side?
Without a doubt, definitely. Because we all have these things in life, right? It was fate. I was supposed to find that. I was supposed to meet him. I was supposed to go there. Well, this was fate. So interestingly enough, I met this lovely woman who's my literary agent to this day.
Right.
And she said to me, Concetta, did you ever write anything? I said, I have a little something. And I had like 6 pages. 6 pages. And she looked at it and she recognized right away. Yeah. Although it was funny and interesting, it wasn't, Yeah. So she goes, we got to figure out what we're going to do. She was so brilliant, my agent. So we went on the trek. They make meetings. And you can only get into like HarperCollins. You can only get into these publishing houses if you have a literary agent.
Yes.
You can't just call up and say, listen, I have a book idea. Yeah. Or, hey, I wrote a manuscript. I'd like to get a meeting. No. They don't even take those calls.
Sure.
They don't want to know nothing. You have an agent. The agent has a person in there they know. They make a meeting. You go in, you take a meeting. So I did that with her. We went to I don't know how many different publishing houses. Finally, I'm with her at HarperCollins, one of the biggest publishing houses in New York City. Awesome. Little old me walks in there, right, with my Jersey accent, and they're talking to me, and there's like a lot of people in the meeting. I realized that. They're with some kind of a...
They can't wait for you to get there.
But they didn't know me, They didn't know me, see? And I go, why are all these people in the meeting? To my agent, and she's like, well, I told them you were a meeting. And I'm like, oh, and then I realized they all want readings.
And then that's how you said that.
So now I go around the table, boom, boom, boom,
that's great.
And there was one literary, one editor was in there, and she said, I like you. And I said, oh, I like you too. And she said, I think we could do something here. So we got together, and they came up with this idea, which I thought was, well, as it turned out, it was brilliant, because they said, instead of writing a book, why don't we write an FAQ? And I said, okay. And they said, do people ask you ask me questions? Are you kidding?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, I said yes. And they said, why don't we write an FAQ, frequently asked questions of a medium?
Mm-hmm.
And it had never been done before.
I love
all
it.
the books,
Yeah.
Sylvia Browne, James Van Praagh,
Right.
you know, all these people, John Edward, yeah, they had books, but they wrote their books.
Right.
And I realized they never had an FAQ. They never had a frequently asked question. So what I did was I took a piece of paper at my shows, and I would put a piece of paper and a pencil on all the chairs. And the paper said, if you had an opportunity to ask a medium any question at all, what would you ask?
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So we collected them at the end of each show, and by the time we got
books.
done, yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Oh, wow.
We had so many questions,
Yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
what I did was, instead of saying, "Oh, here's the question," "Oh, let me see, here's the answer," this is what I did, because that would be horrible to do
Yeah,
for someone like me. I don't want to spend a lot of time sitting around working on a computer.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have been in the mainstream, and I would have been,
yes,
CPA.
of course.
So now I get a cassette player, and here's the questions. The question is, boop, 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 and here's my answer. And then I give the answer. But my answering it has got all of my personality in it.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right,
great.
right,
I love
right.
it.
Everything, you know. And then we took it to somebody who could transcribe it as I said it. So
That's
there's
great.
nobody talking but me. It's all written by me. A lot of
Beautiful.
these people have ghostwriters.
No, absolutely.
A lot of these people get people that
Right.
know how to write a book, or all the biggest names out there that say, they have a book out, but they got somebody who wrote the book. They
Right.
didn't sit down
Right.
at the computer
Yeah,
either.
the book is a fun. I mean, the books are, but it's a fun read
Yeah.
because it's you. It's just
Absolutely.
Concetta talking, and,
So,
and
yes.
it's
Thank
an easy read, and it's exciting. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it ended up, I was in, the book was released. It's called Do Dead People Watch You Shower? And after it was released, 3 weeks after it was released, I was in Germany. And I was in a bookstore in Germany. And all of a sudden I heard, your book will be right there. It's true story.
That's cool.
True
That is
story.
very cool. More messages.
And they said, I got a call out there, and it was my literary agent. She said, foreign rights just sold to Germany. Do Dead People Watch You Shower?
You're like, yeah, I already know. Thanks. Yeah. Well, on that note, I know we have to thank you for being
thank
here
you.
again. Like we
can
could talk
talk for
I know we'll have to have you back
hours
and talk
and
about
hours.
other
Thank you.
things
Thank
because
you so much.
it goes so quick. Yes, but and I want to just leave because I always like to leave
On a high
chance
note.
No, about the air.
Oh,
Yes, always.
air. They're always in the air you breathe. The dead folks are in the air you breathe. And air is spelled AIR, and it stands for always in reach.
Right,
Love
so
it.
reach out to them.
That's
for
right.
anything. Thank you again.
Thank you
Concetta.
very
It's been
much.
such a
Thank
pleasure.
you. God bless you both.
thanks for the
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.